So we're giving this problem its own video because it's historically a sore spot for for some of my past classes. So I want to really make sure we spend some time to really dig into this. So APR versus APY, two very similar but different um, acronyms and things that you'll hear thrown around a lot in banking. So APR is the annual percentage rate, and it's the interest rate just applied for the current year as normal. And this is something that I guess you see this a lot more frequently with things like credit cards, which we'll come back to in the next chapter, next unit. Um, so that's just applied for the current year, and it's just the number, right? If you look at your statement, your savings account statement, maybe it tells you that your interest rate is like something low like that. That's an APR. Your annual percentage yield is something that you see a lot more frequently when you talk about things like CDs and talk about things like long-term savings vehicles. And it's the simple interest rate that would be required to give the same dollar amount of interest that compounding actually did. And it's often higher than the APR. We'll talk about why that might be and why it's used for marketing later on. So what it says, and I know there's a problem here, but I'll come back to that problem in a second. You open an account, right? Here's your account. You put money in the account. And that account grows, right? Because it gets interest, right? There's interest that's compounded. The CD matures and it's got a new balance and you pull that money out, right? This was done over a period of years, so maybe we'll say it was done over like 5 years. And it has a balance. You've earned interest, right? It's your principal plus your interest. Great. Well, one thing the bank looks at is something called APY, which says, okay, instead of compounding and using an interest rate that would have been like your APR, right? It's the rate that was used every year. What would it have taken to do simple interest over 5 years and just award a flat fee? And that flat interest, simple interest rate is your APY. That's the number that banks use to advertise their savings vehicles because they think about investments, they think about rates of return, right? The yield on your account. But the practical number is really the APR because that's what you're actually getting every time it's compounded. But there is a difference in these numbers, and we'll see that in just a second. And this graphic is really awesome, and I don't want to delete it, but I need to because I need to do this problem. So you open an account with $2,000. That seems important. Let's just highlight it now. And it earns 2.5% interest compounded monthly. All right, well, part A is just what's the balance of your account in 3 years? Well, if it's compounded monthly, I'm going to be using the compound interest formula. So P times 1 plus R over N to the NT. And let's get in the habit of isolating all our important information here. We don't know our account balance, but we know we're starting with $2,000, 2.5% interest, compounded monthly after 3 years. If you don't know where I just got those values from, go back and rewatch the first video. All right, well, this is just plug in and simplify. Again, sometimes I like to simplify what's in the parentheses. I'm comfortable enough with my calculator that I don't necessarily need to anymore, but I would really recommend it always to be safe. So my account balance is $2155.60. Here is my account balance. How much in interest do you earn? Well, we've kind of talked about this in the last section when we did simple interest. Right, my account balance, right, if I have here's my account, here's my entire account balance. Well, that's made up of two things, right? That's made up in part of principal, and it's made up in part of interest. So the account balance is the sum of my principal plus my interest. Or in this problem, it's maybe easier to think about it as the interest being the account balance minus the principal. So I'm just going to subtract $2,000, and I've realized that I've earned $155.60. There is my account balance. Get rid of this so I have some room to do the last part of the problem. I'm also going to move all of this over so I have some room to do the rest of the problem. And now I want to know the APY earned on the account to the nearest hundredth of a percent, and that rounding thing can be a sore spot in this problem too, so I'll definitely go over that as well. Well, we just said that the APY, I like doing my notes in a different color so they stick out, my thought process, is I just said it was a simple interest rate. Simple interest rate. So it would be logical to say, let's use the simple interest formula. I just made $155.60 in interest on an account opened with $2,000 over 3 years, and I don't know the rate. I see a lot of people, I've seen it in years past, try to plug in a number for the rate. But I'm trying to find the rate, right? I'm asking you to find the APY, which is a simple interest rate. So R is my unknown. So we would simplify the left, right? The right, we'd have 6,000 on the right, 6,000 R on the right. So I would divide to get R equal to 0.0259. And I want to round that to 100th of a percent, so 2.59%. Right? 4 decimal places becomes 2. I should always have 2 here, right? 100th of a percent. So there are a lot of moving parts, so don't be afraid to go back and rewatch parts of this video. There's a lot of moving parts to this problem, which is what makes it kind of challenging. You're taking each result and kind of chaining them together. And this is my final bit here, right? This is my APY. This was my yield on my account in the long run, right? Overall, over my investing, right? My APR, my 2.5 here, is what I'm getting every time the account is compounded. But the entire return on my investment is 2.59%, and that's the number that banks usually use to advertise their CDs with.